Hey everybody, Chris here from O'Reilly Auto Parts to show you how to change the strut assemblies on your vehicle. Before I get into that, take a second to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already so you don't miss out on any of our new content. Today I'll be changing the strut assemblies on this 2013 Ford F-150, but procedures will vary from one vehicle to the next, so be sure to know the specifics for your vehicle before getting started. If you're not completely comfortable doing this yourself, we'd be happy to recommend a professional technician in your area. A couple quick tips before you get started. We recommend you replace the nuts and bolts that secure your suspension when you replace the strut assemblies. You'll want to use a thread locker recommended by your vehicle's manufacturer when replacing them. Once you've got your supplies together, here's what you'll do. Park on a level surface and set your parking brake. Use a breaker bar and socket to loosen the lug nuts on your front wheels. Chock your rear wheels and lift and support the front end of your vehicle according to manufacturer specifications. Remove the lug nuts completely and take off your front wheels. Open your hood. Use some penetrant on the bolts that will need to be loosened. This will make them easier to remove when the time comes. Start with the bolt at the tie rod end, then the 3 nuts around the top of the strut tower, and the 2 bolts at the lower control arm. In addition to the penetrant, using a wire brush to knock some rust off should help you get these loose. Use a breaker bar and socket to loosen the nut on the tie rod end. You may need a hammer to tap the side of the tie rod end to loosen it. Once that's removed, slip the bolt out. Next, we'll remove the 2 large bolts at the bottom. Secure the bolt with a wrench on the outside and remove the nut from the inside. Now you should be able to tap it through and out. At this point, we can move up to the top of the strut tower to remove the nuts there. Do not attempt to remove this large center nut on the strut mount that holds the assembly together, because this spring has the assembly under high pressure. You should be able to remove all 3 nuts from the top of the strut from inside the engine compartment. Once all nuts and bolts are removed, we're ready to slip the old strut assembly out. Be careful when you do this not to damage the boot that's near the bottom end. You may be able to reposition the steering knuckle to make this a little easier. Use a pry bar if needed to carefully work the bottom end of the strut assembly out and past the boot. At this point, the whole assembly should be disengaged, and you can slide it out through the hole in the bottom of the lower control arm. Compare the old assembly with your new one. You want to make sure that you have the right part, that the 3 bolts at the top of the assembly are in the same orientation relative to the strut at the bottom. Use a light to check the underside of the strut mounting area. If you see any loose rust or debris, use a wire brush to clean it up so the assembly will mount flush. This will keep it from moving and making noise once it's installed. Install your new strut assembly by lining up the bolts at the top, making sure the strut at the bottom is in proper alignment. Once you've slipped the bolts up through the top, finger tighten one of your nuts to hold the assembly in place. You'll need to slip the bottom of the assembly past the boot to get it into position. If needed, you can use the pry bar to help you slip it in. The pry bar may also be helpful in aligning the bottom of the strut, so you can slip the bolt in. Apply the manufacturer recommended thread locker to the nut and put it on finger tight. We'll wait until later to tighten that nut down so we don't damage the bushing at the bottom of the strut. Slip your tie rod end back into place. Apply some thread locker and torque the nut to manufacturer specifications. Don't torque the nuts on the bottom bolt or upper strut mounts until after the weight of the vehicle is on the strut assembly. Placing a jack stand under the lower control arm will compress the strut to ride height, which is what we need. Jack the vehicle up and move the stand on that side to a position under the lower control arm. With the jack stand under the lower control arm, secure the bolts at the bottom of the assembly and torque the nut to manufacturer specifications. Now, replace the nuts on the upper strut mounts and tighten them to manufacturer specifications. Put the jack stand on that side back in its original position, and you're ready to do the same thing on the other side. Except in unusual circumstances, strut assemblies should be changed in pairs. Once you've done with both sides, put your wheels back on and tighten the lug nuts until the wheels are flush against the rotors. Lower your front end and torque your lug nuts in a star pattern to manufacturer specifications. Handle the used strut assemblies you've removed with care. There could be rust or wear that causes the old assemblies to come apart unexpectedly and cause injury or property damage, so avoid dropping or throwing them. And that's it. You'll find everything that you need for this and other jobs at your local O'Reilly Auto Parts store or O'ReillyAuto.com. Our how-to videos are designed to help answer questions we get in our stores every day. If you found this one helpful, subscribe to our channel to get all the latest. We'll see you again soon.